T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's show on the planet. I am your host and, of course, editor-in-chief, the chief, whatever you choose to put it as, Driune Santana. And, of course, the salt shakers are in the building.
It is none other than the Salt Shakers. I no longer have to say one half, but we'll get to that later. It is the one and only senior writer and host, Nickie Booshie here. I am so excited. I feel like we have not done this in a while.
It hasn't been just, us two. It's been us or us with other people and counterparties and whatnot, but not just us how it, normally will be. But of course, you guys know why we're here. You can see by the title of the video. We are here to give you the top 5 moments of the 9th wonder of the world, Chyna. There it is. This article was composed by our host and writer, Katrina. She was going to be on with us, but she couldn't make it. So, Salt Shakers, we here to do what we have to do, and that is to jump into this top 5. Of course, Chyna. I had to use this picture because this is my favorite photo of her. Honestly, it's everything. It's like when I think of Selena or something,
Yeah, it's very iconic. I love the whole, just the aura that Chyna had, and we talk about this all the time. Chyna really was the reason. Chyna's really my first memories of wrestling, honestly. I know in the Attitude Era, it was very dominant by the men. However, Chyna was someone who tussled in the ring with the men, competed with the men, and was really a force, giving the name the 9th wonder of the world. So I'm honored to be here, honestly.
Yeah, and we all know the stories about her not wanting to really fight the women. Because she could throw them around however she wanted to. So let's jump straight into number 5, top 5 moments. And this is when Chyna wins the WWE Women's Championship at WrestleMania 17. So this took place after Chyna posed for Playboy in November 2000. And so she had this huge rivalry with Chyna, who was at that time was in the right to censor, which you saw her at the Royal Rumble. That brought back a lot of memories. So this was I think the first and only time that Chyna actually may have held this title, except for when she defeated Lita in Judgment Day back in 2001, May 20th, which it was really her match with Ivory was a squash match. Normally her matches with the women tend to be squash matches. But what do you think about this coming in the number 5 spot? Chyna winning the WWE Women's Champion.
I do think it's appropriate. I think it's a very appropriate moment. And I think that I love the way that you kick off a top 5. You really have to be very cautious on what you're looking for because it's the starter. I know a lot of people do moments. For me, I like to do strictly matches. So I'm really happy to see a match and a victory. I love seeing victories be expressed and talked about because sometimes people do see title reigns and titles sometimes just as a prop. So this was an achievable moment and such a good way to kick off the top 5. So shout out to Katrina for that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Chyna holding this title, it looked good on her. I feel like it changed her whole aura ordeal. Like when she started to come out with her, the little shooting gun and everything. I feel like that's like one of all time favorite moments of like Chyna's interest and whatnot. But we can't forget where she like originally started. I mean, of course, we know that she started out with DX. So coming in the number 4 spot is Chyna and DX. I mean, hello, like her being a part of DX was everything. I mean, although at first it was just the 4 initial members of Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Rick Rude and her, but there were also other members that were, eventually down the line included. We got X-Pac, Badass Billy Gunn, and the Road Dogg, of course. I mean, this is when Shawn Michaels was no longer with DX at the time, but they kind of formed their own group and everything. So I mean, although at the time, I mean, like, yeah, she was the first and only female enforcer for this group, and her duties was just being a bodyguard. Whatever happens, whatever she needed them to do, whatever they needed her to do, she did what she needed to do. And she ended up being inducted into the Hall of Fame class of 2019 as a member of DX. But I mean, of course, we all know that Chyna does deserve one of her own. But I mean, we can get into that, a little bit later. So what would you say are some of like your favorite like DX and Chyna moments, if you can remember? Because I mean, that happened like Attitude Era range.
To be honest, I really am not a big fan of Chyna being, I'm not going to say being in DX, but I think a lot of people just remember her for that. And it almost made me feel like that's how WWE views her because of her induction. I will say that during this era, I loved any time when her and Billy Gunn were together. I thought they were made for one another. I thought they had undeniable chemistry. I loved her work. I also liked in this era anything that she did with Kane. I think that's sometimes overlooked in how just as powerful and dominating she was as someone like Kane. So yeah, I'm not the biggest. I love the beginning, but there were just, I think there's a lot of DX was kind of for me just all over the place. So I love her contribution. I just think that there could have been something else in place of this number 4, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. I mean, like I said, how she was viewed in DX was to be the bodyguard. She would hold the titles. She would kind of just stand there. She never really talked, so we didn't know if she even had a voice. I mean, of course, she would do some of like the dirty work outside the ring or even inside the ring and whatnot. She didn't have that. She wasn't doing too many matches. She was just kind of like being on the sideline, and the men would just, being who they are. And she would just kind of just stand there and be that bodyguard. So I think eventually when she started to kind of grow and get into her shell and whatnot, we got to see a little bit more personality with Chyna. And I mean, with this next person, of course, if you're around him, you have no choice but to have some type of personality. And I mean, and I love them together. I would say that this was probably one of my favorite moments of Chyna is seeing her, of course, with the late, great, you lie, you cheat, you steal, Viva la Raza, Eddie Guerrero, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, these two together, him having his mamacita with him and everything, it's everything, So this comes in the number 3. It's Chyna and Eddie Guerrero. And I mean, of course, they were, you know, considered to be, you know, WD couple, the pair and whatnot. And you know, their on-screen relationship ended up beginning when they teamed up with Too Cool to take on the Radicals. And it's just like, you know, eventually, she eventually, you know, did not become the Mamacita anymore because they ended up having their own feud together. And he ended up winning a title off of her, actually. And their relationship ended up ending because she ended up seeing a video of Eddie cheating on her with other women. And so I just think, like, I mean, no matter how it ended, I think them two together, it was a iconic moment. It was just, it was everything, you know. It was, I loved it. What did you think about Chyna and Eddie? You know, seeing them on screen together and you know, maybe in matches together and stuff like that.
So I get really emotional, honestly, because to me, this is the best, like, on-screen romance that WWE has ever produced. Right. I think it showed us it. The one thing that I love about it is that it didn't take anything away from Chyna as a woman. She wasn't just seen as being with a man in a storyline as we've seen with other women in WWE. They were a unit. They were, if we're going to be honest, one of the first true power couples in a WWE storyline where both could wrestle, both could talk, both were champions and true champions. And it really made me, them being both gone is just, their contributions alone to wrestling is truly phenomenal. Like, I look at them separately and then I look at them together and it's just, it's crazy. They were truly, those were good times in a story, and it felt as if we were getting something that was really real. I honestly put this down as one of her best feuds because it was more personal and you felt it in the ring. You definitely felt it in the ring.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. With it being more so on the touchy side. I mean, because, you know, like you said, they're both no longer here. So it's like, and I know a lot of people to this day still love Eddie. He's still relevant today when you see like Dominic and Ray do their thing and whatnot. And we see Chyna still relevant when we look at powerhouses like a Bianca and a Beth Phoenix and a Jay, Rhea, and so many more. So I mean, that influence, it still shows that it still lives on. And I mean, they just mesh. They just mix so well together. I mean, if you hated them being together, then I think something is wrong with you. That's something I can pretty much say. I think something is wrong with you. So yeah, let's jump into the number 2 spot, which so happens to be Chyna and the Royal Rumble. Well, this is her being no Mark Henry. But I mean, Chyna's always been really well known for like breaking the glass ceiling for female wrestlers many years ago, and for her to be the first ever woman to compete in the men's Royal Rumble, or just Royal Rumble in general back in that time. I mean, she came in at number 30 in 1999. She was, you know, she could have won, but you know, she ended up eliminating Mark Henry, who, you know, world's strongest man, and eventually she got eliminated by Stone Cold Steve Austin. But you know, even within that night, she, you know, came back again in the following year, and she finished at number 17, and she ended up, you know, defeating Chris Jericho and everything. So it's like both moments of her being in the Royal Rumble, it's still historical today. I mean, because she was the first one to ever do it. She was really the first major like focal point doing the Attitude Era when it came to women's wrestling, and you know, to see her be the only woman at that time to be a part of the Royal Rumble and to be in there with all these big name men and to eliminate them and whatnot, I think that was a true iconic moment for her.
I definitely agree, and I think it holds importance to someone who was involved in something that we didn't have women's Royal Rumbles back then. So for her to be included and them to be at least moderately inclusive, there's so much that Chyna did during her era that I feel like was forgotten over the years until after we started to see an end to the Divas era. And I'm not saying that we definitely saw Chyna in Beth Phoenix.
Yeah.
To the point. And I feel like this maybe with Chyna to an extent with Beth Phoenix. Sometimes we see a lot of women who are put in eras that if they were put in different eras, I believe there would be a different, like, could you imagine, and you said this when we talked on Clubhouse, could you imagine a 30 entry being Chyna? Like, could you imagine that being Chyna as the 30 entry?
Well,
you said this.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you think about it, if we, Women's Royal Rumble happening now, the first one happened in 2018 for the women. I think the roof would have like went off the place if Chyna, if she was still here and she was number 30 and nobody knew about it.
Think about a matchup with Bianca and Beth and Charlotte. And I mean, Chyna's influence, I feel like it was centered almost, and we felt like, especially, and it was just for me, especially moments like this, NXT started to make me feel like there was some piece of what Chyna and Eddie, and that's back, going back to the other, topic as well.
Right.
But what Eddie and Chyna did and could have been doing now, I feel like resonated in the old NXT, and it might be a stretch, but just seeing certain people come through NXT, men and women, I saw Chyna and I saw Eddie. So resulting back to this moment, I would have loved to see her at least be there to witness the greatness of a women's Royal Rumble, because if it wasn't for people like Chyna beginning back then, we wouldn't be in the magnitude of main events and Hell in a Cell matches for women. So this moment right here, honestly, her being in the men's Royal Rumble changed the landscape, even though it took 25 years, even more. This moment alone, people will always be able to look back and say that this happened.
Right. I mean, I definitely agree. And I mean, of course, it opened up doors for other women to have entered the men's Royal Rumble, like a Beth Phoenix, like a Karma or Awesome Kong, and like a Nia Jax. To have those moments, to have them a part of the men's Royal Rumble as well, even if it was for a short period of time. I mean, Beth Phoenix came in at number 6 and eliminated the Great Khali in 2010, and then with Carmi 12 Rumble, and then Nia Jax entered at number 30 in 2019. So I mean, it was like there's moments where we are having women come out and be a part of this, now they don't have to. Well, it'd be nice to see the women mix it up in the men's Royal Rumble. I mean, and so on and so forth. So I think that with the influence of Chyna, I think without her, I don't think women would have ever probably even been featured in the men's Royal Rumble, even if it's just one of them. Like I really doubt that would ever happen.
I agree.
So before we get to number 1, Of course, I mean, when you think of Chyna, there's so many different things that she has done over her course of her career. That either took place inside of W or WWF, and moving over to, the outskirt of her own personal life and whatnot. So we have to get into like some honorable mentions of or notable moments of Chyna being in New Japan. Now, I didn't know that Chyna went over to wrestle in New Japan until I saw her, her documentary on, I think it was Vice, that we had all watched and everything. I never knew she went over to New Japan and wrestled over there, but she was wrestling men. Like she was having, I didn't see like a time where she was having any matches
Top
with
guys.
men, with women, but I mean, she was
Yeah.
only there for a few months. She won most of her matches while she was there anyway. But still, like she it's like wherever Chyna went, she was gonna make a name. She already had a name for herself, no matter if she was on bad terms with WWE and so on and so forth. But I mean, she's a walking attraction. She is, like, you cannot deny that, you know. So yeah, I mean, I would love to go back and watch some of her matches in New Japan. I think they should be on YouTube or something. But I mean, her moments in New Japan, Nikki. What do you think about her, crossing over to there and getting into that style of wrestling? Because they
So
get
I loved it the most because I felt like she was at peace.
hmm
There was a sense of serenity back in wrestling. And a lot of people say this when they go to Japan, they get more of the basics and more of a feel for wrestling again
hmm
versus how it is in the States. It is very commercial depending on
yeah.
promotions that you go to, or even in indies, it can be, it can turn into commercial, or you want a bigger buck. Where in Japan, I feel like she really felt a sense of clarity
hmm
and a piece of serenity and a sense of like, this is what I've always wanted to do. And it's beyond having people um, love you. It's more about them reacting to you. I
hmm
wish that during this moment and even before this moment, I wish that China would have taken the deal to WCW.
mm
Because I wonder, and we talked about this when we watched the documentary, because the documentary was
mm
just really good, eye
It
opening
was.
for all of us. And there was so much that we didn't know. There were so many
Mhm.
things that we uncovered, but there were so many things that we were still questioned about. And the one thing that I questioned was, I wonder if she would have took the ticket to WCW. I wonder would have that not saved her, but would that
Mhm.
have any of impact on, you know, like,
I, I mean, it's so much in the line that kind of goes
Mhm.
into what would have been like at peace for her. I mean, of course, if you watch the documentaries, you hear the stories, you read everything, you pretty much know exactly what transpired over with WWE and whatnot,
Yeah.
especially when it came to China. I mean, it was like eventually it was like they tried it. You mean, at some point, it was like she was kind of erased from like the women's division. Never
Completely.
brought her up, never mentioned her name. No, there was like first ever is this, first ever is that, when she was the one who was doing it here. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? So it's like you cannot erase this woman. It doesn't matter. And it's like when the time around when Royal Rumble came for the women,
Mhm.
this is when y'all start mentioning her again.
Mhm.
A lot of these people, like, now you're bringing her up. You have to use her name for relevancy, to try to make an impact, to try to get people in tune. We already know what we already know. But I mean, if she had, I think if she did jump to um, WCW, maybe it could have been a different environment for her. You know, maybe she could have been like even a bigger star than what she was over at WWE. You know, they were WCW was making stars, whether they flopped in business and whatnot, and everybody shifted over to WWE again and whatnot. I think maybe taking herself out of that negative environment, kind of putting it over here. But even in her documentary, we did see that she did look a little peaceful when she was in Japan. You know, it seemed like she was, but you know, we already know exactly what transpired after that. So we're going to another notable moment of Chyna, and this is when she posed for Playboy. Now, when I was trying to find this picture again, you know, everything popped up. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Like, I was not trying to see nothing. I was just trying to find a picture. I'm like, okay, trying to see a girl. But I mean, her at the, you know, posing for Playboy. It was you know.
Did you not like it?
You know, at that time, I know that she was learning to getting more comfortable in her skin and in her body. And I know at the time people started to question her features. She started to look more feminine and everything, which something she's always kind of had an issue with growing up was, you know, not having like, you know, a lot of feminine features and whatnot. So of course, this is when she, you know, go in. You can see the change from how she looked in the beginning to now, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And we saw the criticism that she got at the time when she, you know, was a lot muscular. And she was still muscular, you know, but it was just like she was muscular, but in their eyes, they started to question if she was a man or a woman, you know, and all things in that. So then, like, when she started to transfer it over into, you know, changing her features, changing her look, you know, I think she became a lot more comfortable in her skin. But I mean, her shoe was one of the best sellings of all times. Like, I mean, she appeared in the magazine twice, and I don't think to this day nobody's like Playboy cover sold as much as Chyna. I mean, she, like I said, she was a walking attraction. And I don't know, like I guess during that time, posing for Playboy was an accomplishment, you know, for the women. It kind of gave them something to, I guess, have of their own. And because of that, I guess, partnership or business thing that Vince may have had with, you know, Playboy and Hugh Hefner and all that stuff. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could care less about the whole Playboy thing, but I mean, it's a moment for her. It's notable.
I will say this. It's funny because it just made me think that this was the one thing that they took from Chyna in the Divas era. The one influence that I see from the Divas era is when they would do reveals from Playboy. And I never thought about that being a way of them, and maybe it's not, but I never thought about her doing that. Also was like, yes, she was a wrestler, but there was definitely a diva there. And so I never really thought about that crossover until now, because this was something that was looked at as a prestigious, like something you put on your resume, like your portfolio. It's like I posted, I'm Playboy.
I was Playmate cover girl
2005 or something. That's something that you do, where now I wouldn't dare see, like, and I could be wrong, but I just wouldn't see like a Sasha Banks or a Charlotte Flair or even a Bliss or definitely, you know, anybody that I don't see that being the mold. We really turned the mold, but it makes me really realize just how like China was more than just women's wrestling, men's wrestling, intergender wrestling, like Japan wrestling, American wrestling. Like she was wrestling.
She was.
No matter what. And I was actually a huge fan, not necessarily of the Playboy subscriptions when I was growing up, but I loved the whole like the bunny and the marketing tool of it. And then you remember they came out Indra and them. I thought that was really cool. So when it did cross over, when you would see it in WWE, I thought it was like, oh wow, that's so cool. Now looking back at it, it was slightly, I'm not gonna say degrading, because I feel like people did it because they wanted to do it. So I definitely think it was a good moment for her career. Maybe not like an honorable.
Yeah, it's just like a notable moment, you know, something that she did do. That I mean, at that time, how I look at the wrestlers now versus if we go into the Divas era, they had a lot of sex appeal.
Yeah,
there was a lot of sex appeal going on. Although some of the
no
women
wrestling.
we have now, no wrestling, maybe
No.
2 matches, 3, you know. But as far as like the women of today, you're right. I can't see a Sasha Banks on there. Carmella, definitely.
Yeah, but not even that. I wouldn't even see. I would see her going as far as like a Sports Illustrated or Maximum, you know, something like that to clean it up. I would not
They used to have them on Maximum at one point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
as big as being like a Playboy.
I still wouldn't even see like, and this may sound far fetched, Carmella, I wouldn't. Mandy Rose, maybe, but I don't even know because it still gives Sports Illustrated.
I still think I would see maybe Carmella on there. I don't know.
I would say Mandy over.
I mean, yeah, I could see
over
Mandy
anybody,
on there, but I still would see Mandy in Sports Illustrated. I still would.
Yeah.
But I'm
I just say Carmella because she is an ex cheerleader and she is kind of like, she could blur the lines in what it means to have sex appeal in fitness.
Yeah.
Her and Playboy, I don't know. I mean, you know what's crazy? It's so crazy that we're having this conversation because it goes to show how the mold has really changed. Yeah. Like where Playboy was like, I got my contract. I'm getting my reveal on Monday Night Raw.
Nobody cares about Playboys.
Where it's like, now it's like, you doing what?
You got your blessings out to the world.
What? You going what?
Girl.
But to each his own. I really like, if I was given the opportunity in 2022 as a wrestler, I would do it. 100%. Not gonna lie.
I mean, shake the room.
Because it's a, you know, I don't know. It's still a.
Well, they're not doing Playboy like that no more either.
No, I don't even think they do that. I don't think they do that anymore.
Playboy died down when the Divas era did. So, I mean, I don't even think I remember who the last person was on the cover. I think was it Ashley? Was Ashley the last person?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
well,
I think
I just want to say to the end of the Diva era, thank you, Charlotte Flair.
Not the night. Okay. Not the night.
I found a way. I found a way.
Yeah, this is about Chyna. Thank you so much for your time, Charlotte. Please exit stage left. Getting back into Chyna's notable moments. Her actually making this is how Chyna made. This is how Chyna made. Look at that lady face over there. She looks like
she's enjoying this.
It's like, girl, you gonna fight back? This is Chyna in her debut choking out Terry.
Can we get it one more time?
Marlena at the time. This was she debuted at In Your House. This was after Triple H's match with Rocky Maivia, who is known as The Rock. Goldust and Marlena known as Terry Runners, interfered in that match to try to help The Rock to win. But Chyna came out the crowd and attacked Marlena and choked that girl out. Like, I mean, she had a grip. Like, she had a grip on that lady's neck. Like, she could have died immediately. Okay. But yeah, I mean, Chyna's debut in your house. Like, this is the first time nobody knew who she was or anything like that. But shout out to Jim Ross for I know we have our thing with JR and whatnot, but shout out to him for bringing in Chyna. Without him we wouldn't have Chyna. So I'm gonna salute him on that. Him and the barbecue.
I'm not gonna salute him, but I mean, I see your point.
Yeah, well, on behalf of the Salt Shakers and excluding Nicki at this point, a salute. But
Thank you,
I
Chyna.
mean, thank you.
No, but all seriousness though, yeah, no, I mean, if it wasn't, I wish that the only thing I'm gonna say on that, I wish he had the same respect for Chyna and her wrestling career versus her personal career that he did on other women coming up as well. I think he had a different respect for Chyna, and this may be controversial, but I think he had a different respect for Chyna because of her stature. I think he looked at, and there's nothing wrong with this. That's just my synopsis of it. I think he looked at Chyna as one of the guys. And so it was a little different. And I also think he looked at it as his way of producing something to Vince that probably no one else could ever do.
Or thought of.
Or
couldn't, really execute it the way that they may have thought it would have executed.
So,
but,
good old Jim or JR Jim Ross.
Oklahoma's on.
Jacksonville's on now. That man switched states more than he switches draws.
I don't know. He might. Well, this is not about JR and his.
He's from California, by the way.
He is from California. That's the Cali man. I don't care how many cowboy hats he on. Anyway, so moving on more to this Katrina, girl. These are a lot of.
It was like a top 10.
This should have been a top 15.
Yeah, it was like a top 10. I was like,
but this kind of just let you know that Chyna has done so much in her career that people try to overshadow it and only label her as being a part of DX without actually acknowledging the fact that during her time with WWF, she had moments, she had matches, and even though majority of them did take place with men, I mean, she put on some really, really good matches with these men. This next one, of course, my favorite, and always my first crush in wrestling, Chris Jericho and Chyna at Survivor Series in 1999.
What a match.
It was a good match.
This definitely, I'm going to be honest, disrespectful that it was an honorable mention. I'm not even going to lie. Y'all know how I am. I personally love matches. This was the ringer. Like, this match is like one of her honest, like, Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Jeff Jarrett, like, top feuds. Like, to me, like, none of her top feuds were even with the women. I feel like she put Lita over, to be honest. I feel like Ivory was kind of put over in a sense. But, like, honestly, like, her and Jericho were evenly squared up. And those lockups, like, everything. This match is solid. Like, so I probably would have had this like number 4, maybe. I probably would have had it higher, but it definitely, like, this match would have been on my top 5, like 100%.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you just look at it. It's like a lot of during that time, male egos, and, especially when it comes to not even just wrestling, just in everyday life. Whenever a woman has some type of dominance or presence, and she's there, and she could probably do your job better than you, some men are very, very intimidated by that. But Chris Jericho, he wasn't. They both went out there and did what needed to be done. I mean, this is like literally one of the highlights of that night. And she won the match. You know, she retained her title. So I mean, she went out there and did what was needed to. I mean, Chris Jericho, of course, he's pure entertainer. Like his no matter how many times he's screaming his matches, he is pure entertainment. And I mean, this is like, I wouldn't even make this a notable moment. This should have been on the definitely in the top 5 somewhere.
Yeah, because Jericho was knocking, like he was knocking in this match, and it was wild. It was a really good. I recently watched this match too. Really good.
It was. Shout out to Chris Jericho and everything. And then we get to our last notable moment. And this is Chyna and the King of the Ring, like the only woman to be the first and only woman to compete in the King of the Ring tournament. I mean, like, how could you, like, what? Like, she actually, so she went in, she replaced Triple H in the King of the Ring tournament after Triple H decided he wanted to pursue after the championship. So she ended up beating Val Venus in the first round in like lasted like 2 minutes and 14 minutes. Like, what? So I mean, it's like she beat him in a squash match. Although she didn't necessarily win the King of the Ring, which would have been very interesting because we would have had our first ever Queen of the Ring. You know, you imagine Chyna being a part of the Queen of the Ring, like, or something like that. Like, the moments, like, it's crazy. But I mean, her being a part of King of the Ring, I will say this is a notable moment because now we do have a Queen of the Ring tournament. I don't know if they're going to do another one. But it was nice about the first one that they had last year and whatnot.
I definitely think we need another Queen of the Ring. I would love for them to put some more emphasis on maybe like the ninth wonder of the world or something to honor. The issue that I have with WWE when it regards to Chyna is there needs to be something in place, like a memorable match or the Chyna inaugural, I don't know, you know, just anything. Or like if they introduce a women's intercontinental title, you know, that would be an initial, you know, a great way to do that. And honestly, she still would have been a king. Honestly, she would have been King of the Ring, and she would have went on. There's, and we'll get to the number one before I say it, but Triple H. Like, she would have beat Triple H. She would have. That would have ended up being and that was a match that I don't think was on the list, but like, she would have beat him.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. She definitely would have.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was King of the Ring. Not really much to kind of go into that. I mean, if you don't know much about it, I'm gonna tell you. But now here we are, number one. I mean, we are here now. You know what I'm saying? Number one of the top 5 moments of Chyna is Chyna becoming the first and the only woman to hold the Intercontinental Championship. I mean, the first and the only woman in history. Don't think they will let that happen again. To hold the Intercontinental Champion. I mean, within this moment, this was her match with Jeff Jarrett, and you know, Jeff Jarrett, he definitely did his part. Jeff Jarrett is, I know people like to talk about him and all this and that, but you got to give Jeff Jarrett his credit. During that time, he was probably one of the most entertaining wrestlers in that moment of the Attitude Era.
Tennessee's own.
Tennessee's own, baby.
I mean, and he also worked with Chyna. Like, and
Behind the scenes, everything.
the one thing about Jeff Jarrett and Chris Jericho is that they weren't afraid to hold back with Chyna. And I definitely agree with this being the number one. I think that her winning a men's title is something that should happen again.
Yeah.
We need, and I'm not even gonna like, I'm not even gonna put it on WWE. I'm gonna just say this. There should be a woman who wins a men's world title, whether it's the Impact World title, whether it's the NWA World Heavyweight title, whether it's the AEW World Heavyweight title, doesn't matter. Now, I will say this, and it may not be in the same magnitude as this, but shout out to the women that have won the hardcore title, and also shout out to the women who won the 24/7 title. But it's not enough. We need another moment. We need another moment like this. Chyna winning that title is still around today.
It still is.
Miz is, in my opinion, of our era, one of the greatest intercontinental champions of modern day history. And the reasoning be is because he did something to that title, the same thing that Chyna did winning the title, and that was make it the number one title. There was a moment where the Intercontinental Championship, Jacqueline and Medusa were cruiserweight champions, and that's big as well. And they should. This is something that should have happened in the earlier days of NXT, in my opinion. I think it could happen now, as controversial as it will be now. Who cares? Like, I think that this is like Jordan Grace holding the Digital Media Championship and losing it to Matt Cardona, as bad as it was. Matt Cardona looks at Jordan Grace as a threat. She is a former champion, a championship. Like, he's holding a championship that she once held. He knew he had to pull all the stops out. He hit her with a chair. They get it. And I wish that we could just get more of that. That night, honestly, even though, and I can say this now on the record, even though that I knew about that 2 weeks in advance, shout out to all the people that go to the Impact events. Even though I knew about that, resulting back to Chyna, it felt like that moment. It felt like when Chyna won a men's title and men saw Chyna as a threat to their division. Not to women, not to the women's division, not to the men's division, but the whole division. Like, she could literally take out anybody. That is stellar. And that's what, to me, is it brings back so many memories of Chyna's legacy. And with this number one, it's absolutely perfect to cap off.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, Chyna winning that, maybe some men in the audience were upset, but the women were not. Because and I always talked about I miss the intergender matches. Like, I love seeing that Impact does that, and even on the indies, I mean, the men and women are always fighting each other because they look at them as being equal. You know what I'm saying? I don't think like a WWE or even moved over to like an AEW or putting their women and men in matches together where they, like, I remember when they used to have tag matches, the men and the women will fight too. There wasn't, okay, you got to tag out and same sex, fight each other, whatever. That's boring. Let the women get involved too. They're just as tough as the men. They're superstars now. They're not divas anymore. And even when they were divas, y'all was still putting them in the ring with men, and they were having their matches. They were going through tables. They were getting pushed off ladders. They were speared, punched, whatever. All types of things that were happening. it should still happen today. But I know that we live in a world where you have some of these newer wrestling fans who are coming into this realm of wrestling that started watching at a later time where they don't understand where it all began at. So, I mean, and there it is. We are, guys. We almost an hour in, you know. And we kept up everything, top 5 and notable moments of Chyna. I would say now one of my moments here is Chyna being now into the W2K22 game. I am so happy that she is a part of the game now. Even though she's on the Legends, whatever, it's still happy. I'm still happy to have her in the game. Can't wait to play as her. And hopefully this year or maybe within the near future, I see that we could get a Hall of Fame introduction, solo Hall of Fame introduction for Chyna. Nothing else, not no video package. Don't try to include her with everything else. Like, give her her own moment, which she should have been. And it sucks, like I said, that she deserves to be here to be able to witness this moment for herself. And so
I do agree. I hope that this could be the year. The jury is still out.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to have her go into the game and, you know, have the induction as well. And shout out to the people who actually run her Twitter account. I know they follow a couple of us, and we stay pretty active on Twitter, and they stay posting a lot of things, and that does allow the legacy and the conversation to not stop, because that's the end goal is to just have her legacy to be able to really be like appropriately given by WWE and respectfully, because there's a few people that we're just never gonna get that, and I don't want Chyna to kind of be one of those people, because she definitely deserves it, and it would be nice for them to have a Royal Rumble match at WrestleMania in her memory.
Yeah, like how they and like have them like the WrestleMania Miss WrestleMania thing they used to do. You know, if you know for a fact they're women that you probably gonna leave off the card. Put them in the Battle Royal like y'all used to. Y'all used to put them in the Battle Royal for WrestleMania like every year.
Yep.
Bring it back. Bring some of the girls from NXT, you know, and bring back some people. You know, so it's WrestleMania.
And then they can have people like pay homage to some of her looks.
Yeah, like something. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Maybe we need to call corporate like Sam.
No, I ain't doing that now. If they give it to us, they give it to us. Now it might happen, honestly.
I don't know. I mean, we don't know. We don't really know what's happening on the WrestleMania card like that. But it's 2 nights.
Well, listen. I ain't finna get into this with you.
No, but what I'm saying is like, no. What I'm saying is like, as far as like filling out the rest of the card for both nights, we know who you focus on. We're not worried about that right now. We get it. Okay. I'm talking about the other women who are floating around trying to figure out what their WrestleMania moment gonna be like.
Like Liv Morgan.
She might be somewhere in the line back there in the back. But you guys, we're gonna go ahead and get on out of here. Thank you guys so much for joining this top 5 moment of Chyna. It was fun. It was cool. This was the first time in a long time that it's just been me and Nickie. So you know, so don't get too comfortable. You might see us again real soon.
Listen, that real soon is gonna turn into I don't know, who knows? Not too much now, but before we get out of here, y'all will not see Santana tonight. Y'all will see her on Friday again. However, do not forget tonight, Monday Night Raw, post-show with none other than our Leslie, who we're dedicating a very special episode to her as she gives us her farewell. I can't say that word. Farewell, and hangs up her boots here at Women's Wrestling Talk. And we'll also be doing a love special of some of my favorite. Thank you. Some of my favorite couples in wrestling. So make sure you guys tune in. We'll be going live tonight, exclusively here on Women's Wrestling Talk at about 10:15. So.
Yeah. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. To all the ones who are in love and not. Shout out Heart Dynasty, Heart Nation, Heart Family.
Shout out to all the single people. If you're watching and you're single, shout out to you, because everybody matters. Love is to be celebrated for self too. I think people forget about that self-love as well. Go get you a crumble cookie and get you a balloon.
That's where I'm going to get me a crumble cookie, Valentine's Day style. You already know I've been over here eating my Russell Stoven chocolate from Walmart that I got over the weekend. This thing is almost empty. So, but yeah, Nikki, let everybody know where they can, follow you at. And if you hate Charlotte Flair, do not go to where she at. Proceed.
Thank you for the disclaimer, but I will repeat myself. If you do not, and I said do not, like Charlotte Flair, do not come and follow me. I am not nice. You guys can catch me on Instagram. Also, she follows me on Instagram. I don't think I've ever said that on here.
Nikki has not let it be known that Charlotte Flair knows Nickie Booshie. She follows her. She comment. She responded to her DM Charlotte Flair.
And shout out, I got to give a big shout out to the Wrestling Classic for that. Mm-hmm. But Charlotte Flair does know who I am. Yes. But yeah, catch me on the Twitter. I love Twitter. It's a playground. It's very fun. Nickie Booshie. And then also on Instagram, I post pretty much everything, and then pretty much everything Trey Miguel. So if you like Trey Miguel, who also follows me and knows me and loves me, love him and adore him as well, come see me. I really don't be on Instagram like that. So if you guys want to have some fun, honestly, before we get out of here, please come and check us out when we live tweet. It's really fun. We have a good time. We joke. And Twitter's the land of just freedom. So yeah. And I mean, Santana, where because obviously these people gotta Google you. So let these folks know.
You don't necessarily have to Google me, but if you want to find where I am, you just type in my name, Driune Santana, and that's where you find me. I mean, right there below here, that's just my Twitter. I'm rarely on Twitter. Twitter is not my playground. I kind of stay out the way over there. I'm more so on Instagram, but I really don't post on there either. So I just pop up whenever I feel like I'm needed. I mean, I don't have if you're not a fan of this person, thing. I mean,
Bianca.
Ain't nobody really.
You might not let people come to your page and disrespect Bianca.
But why would they do that?
The internet's weird.
Yeah, they are weird, but why would they come to me? Why would you come over there? So I break your fingers like P. Dunne. So
wow.
And I will stomp on your hand and everything. So don't come over here. Yep, I break fingers around here. I've been learning from the best. So I'm gonna give y'all a water chop.
Well, it's still Black History Month, so
still Black History Month. See you guys later. Come back. Make sure you come back later on tonight for the Raw post show with Nikki and Leslie. So yeah, let's go ahead and get out of here because I'm finna get my crumble cookies, y'all. So follow me on Instagram so that you can see my cookies for the day. Bye.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.